Hey everybody, and welcome to Inferno Cast, episode number 024. I am Inferno Fox, host of this podcast, as well as the YouTube's Inferno Fox gaming channel. You can find us here on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and much, much more. Joining me today is my wonderful cast and crew. We have Jamie Owls, my partner and partner in crime. Jamie Owls, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, I'm glad to be here.
And glad to have you here with us. Next up, we have Stormrosesky of the Twitch and YouTube channels of Stormrosesky. Storm, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here this evening.
Absolutely. And next up is Astrimedes, developer and co-owner of Second Place Games. Astrimedes, thank you so much for joining us.
Glad to be here, backseat game developing with you.
Absolutely. With us in spirit, though not physically, is Jason the 13th. He is and has the ownership of the YouTube channel of Jason the 13th. But last and definitely, certainly not least, is Simbu Darkfang. He's a resident level 5 grandpa, main actor over at Basement of the Dead, located in Aurora, Illinois. That again is Basement of the Dead. So if you're in the local Chicagoland area, definitely recommend checking that out. And finally, Simbu Darkfang is the best fork knife player. Don't argue with me on this. Simbu, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, happy Easter, everybody.
And it is going to be a very happy Easter because we have a fantastic topic to run through here. And we're really going to be discussing the aftermath and afterbirth that is the Game Awards that was on last Thursday, December 7th. And this is something where, like, Jamie Alls caught about everything but like the last 45 minutes. I watched the whole thing. I believe Simbu and Storm, y'all were playing Fork Knife. So I don't know if you had it on in the background, but even if you didn't catch it live, we had a lot of fun with it here because our previous podcast was making some really cool predictions on the various games and everything like that and topics. And so I'll be sharing my screen shortly to be running through that. But within the Game Awards itself, there was a lot of fun with it, like Christopher Judge's shade against the Modern Warfare 3's campaign to the Crazy Fluke guy at the end. Let's discuss it. But again, I'm going to run through and attempt to share my screen here. It's just like a meeting at work where somebody is going to be trying to share their screen and then they go mute and they're like, "We can't see your screen." It's going to be like that again. All right. So let's talk about the results for the Game Awards. The number one thing is we did 20 categories and we each predicted and put our own personal votes. And the big winner for the predictions was me. I'm the big winner. I got the most correct. I ended up with 11 of them. So hooray to me. But as I mentioned in the previous podcast, there was a prize. I'm not going to win the prize because what the heck is that? What am I going to win my own prize? Second place went to Jamie Owls and Stormrosesky for having 10 out of 20, where I had 11. And Jamie Owls is my partner, so she gets the good grace of being with me as her gift. So that's her prize.
You're the gift that keeps on giving.
I do. I'm like the cats with the litter box.
Oh
Also,
boy.
though, Storm
dunce
actually
prize.
wins a prize. And Storm, what did you end up winning?
The Princess Peach's Showtime pre-order. I'm excited. Thank you.
No problem.
So
Thank you guys again for joining us with and just doing this prediction. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of good discussion and everything like that. After Jamie Owls and Storm was Jason the 13th and Astrimedes with 9 out of 20 correct. And last and definitely certainly not least was Simbu with 8 out of, I think I said 9 out of 10. I'm sorry, 9 out of 20. Simbu had 8 out of 20. So I want to just kind of highlight something here. Just really impressed with how well everybody did with the predictions, considering I know a lot of us didn't play a lot of these games. I think You know, honestly though, I think Simbu, Jamie Owls, Storm, and myself probably played the most out of all of these games. Astrimedes, I know you played a number of more indie games that were
I
PC
played
stuff.
none of these games. Still got 9 correct.
Good job.
So like I think between like you and Jason having the least played out of all these new games, I think we all really did well. It kind of shows our finger on the pulse of kind of gaming industry, knowing how these game boards kind of work, and also knowing very clearly here that Baldur's Gate was gonna make a run. It it didn't win everything like we kind of thought they were gonna, but I mean, I think they still won like 5 out of the 8 of the awards that they were nominated. So kind of
Still a
briefly, I
pretty
just
good
want to,
showing.
yeah, I kind
Yeah.
of want to briefly talk about the show itself. One of the things, especially like these wins and everything like that. Um, I don't know. I think one of the reasons I picked Alan Wake 2 was I was expecting some sort of like upset where it was going to come and kind of win a surprise thing just because like it won Time Magazine's Game of the Year, because Time Magazine, they do a lot of video gaming. So I was ready for the upset, but the upset was, I think, with the game direction of the year because Simbu, Jason, Astrimedes, I and Storm, I think you had even mentioned it, but like you guys mentioned just the way that Tears of the Kingdom really ran with the whole building aspect. It kind of, you guys almost convinced me to pick Tears of the Kingdom over Baldur's Gate for game direction because y'all made a really compelling argument, but then Alan Wake 2 ends up winning that.
And I initially misunderstood the category and expected direction as a more literal sort of movie direction. And during our prediction podcast, I mistakenly predicted Alan Wake 2 for the wrong reason. So I was half right.
Gotcha. No, that's a good point though. And
It's not really.
I mean, okay, last time I'd be nice and agree with you. No. But it's funny how many game awards that Alan Wake itself ended up winning, because you can see it won 3 here, whereas Zelda only won just one, and that was, this game was the sequel to the Game of the Year in 2017. But yeah, Baldur's Gate 3, Game of the Year itself. Do we have any thoughts on that kind of being the Game of the Year?
See,
That one
I may
sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
That I was just gonna say that one feels okay to me. I don't have any gut like some of the other categories. I don't have any gut reaction about that one feeling wrong. I think it's neat to see it as Game of the Year. I think a lot of work and some sort of innovative stuff combined with some old stuff went into it to make like what feels like a decent contender and pick for it to me.
Yeah, hot slice, that makes a good amount of sense. Simbu, what were you going to say?
Well, I was gonna say when it comes to Tears of the Kingdom, the hardest part of any gaming company or genre or release is going first. As you can see, out of probably what 90% of this year's list, Tears of the Kingdom was the first release. So not only do you have Tears of the Kingdom coming out back in, I believe, what, March this year? Is that correct?
It came out in mid to late May.
Okay. So in and of itself, I mean, you still look along the lines, and of course, a lot of these, games are, currently in development and in their post-stage development processes. But when you have a game that goes first, that comes out like Tears of the Kingdom and has some groundbreaking new, mechanic for it, you see a lot of other, there's still the potential for game devs to go, oh boy, that's something big. We've got to do something extra now.
The only
And
thing, the only
that's-
counter argument to that is what can devs do to sort of change or right the ship when you had mentioned that you thought it came out in March, but comes out in mid-May. Baldur's Gate 3 came out in late August and Alan Wake came out in October. When you think about it, what sort of changes can a game like that make within the last 3 months of its release that can't already be done with like the bones of the game itself is already set, it's already in stone. You're not really going to see like many different changes with that. But I feel like your argument is absolutely valid in the sense that there's like a recency bias. Like a lot of these critics and everything like that just got done playing Alan Wake 2 because that released in late October. It just made the line to meet this year's awards. So like they've really got that on their mind. So like of course that's going to leave a greater impression than a game released in March or May. I guess the counter argument is, well, again, Breath of the Wild did win Game of the Year in December of 2017 when that game released in March. So that must have left a good impression. But I still think you have an excellent argument there. And in my thoughts, it's the recency bias that has
well,
that.
and not to mention not only potential recency bias, but again, and to your point of what can these companies do in late stages when a big name title, something like that releases, polishing, for all we know, like that, mid-May, late August, that's not a lot of time, but that's plenty of time for polishing, fine tuning, making sure that everything's running right, making sure that everything's going good. And then of course you got Alan Wake 2 in October, which is even more time to make sure that when this game comes out, that there are absolutely the minuscule amount of glitches or unpolishedness, things that are not going to be seen, because like that, Tears of the Kingdom kind of put everybody on notice. Like, hey, this is a big game and this is a really good game. So if you guys want to be up to snuff, you really better crunch.
Yeah, and it's funny because like Tears of the Kingdom itself, it had been in development for almost 6 years. So I don't think I personally don't feel like it's the release itself so much as it's like the Larian Studios and the developer for Alan Wake 2, they know it's the year that Tears of the Kingdom came out. That's when they're planning to get it out. So they're like, oh crap, if we're going to release this and it's going to be the same year as Zelda, like if they're thinking with Alan Wake 2 starting production in mid 2019 and Larian Studios, was that a 5-year production? I think it was.
Seems about right.
You got these 4 to 5 year productions where they're aiming for 2023. Just like Simbu's saying, your crosshairs are focused on the year a major Zelda game comes out. I mean, every year a Zelda game comes out, but like the Zelda game. And so I really think we need to give kudos, especially to Baldur's Gate 3 and Alan Wake 2 for being able to, I almost said the word usurp, assuming that it was Zelda's awards to lose, but it kind of was like Zelda's known to have that pedigree. And I really think Baldur's Gate 3 and Alan Wake 2 deserve it as well, because these are high quality games. Everybody loves them. The sales have, I don't know how the sales have been for Alan Wake 2. They haven't been publishing that. So that's interesting. But Baldur's Gate 3 has had enormous, excellent positive reception up to and including, I should mention that Baldur's Gate 3 shadow dropped on Xbox Series X and S the evening after, or I guess right after the Game Awards. So it was a real treat for Xbox users to be able to finally play Baldur's Gate 3. Were there any surprises that like any games that won that kind of surprised you? I know Astrimedes, you'd mentioned that there were other things that kind of caught your eye on that.
Yeah, well, in particular, So to be fair, full disclosure, I've not actually played Alan Wake 2, but in the interim, particularly since our last podcast with predictions, I've actually sort of looked a lot into it. I've read some articles on it, watched some gameplay, heard some other podcasts talk a bit more about it. And that the more I learn about it, the more kind of surprising it is to know that it actually won the best direction category, only because it sounds like the game is actually very light on mechanics, particularly innovative mechanics to me. To me, my takeaway from, and I'm really not trying to even disparage the game, but really say that I think its strengths, or I'm sorry, is it so it won direction. Let me review here before I continue to talk. So it
Yeah.
won direction,
Narrative
narrative,
and
and
so it
art
won art
direction.
and game
Yeah,
direction and
okay.
narrative.
So
yeah.
art direction seems completely justified to me. I would say art direction is a complete non-surprise because I think, to me, at least in my, admittedly probably flawed opinion of the game, it seems to me that this game was pretty groundbreaking in terms of presentation. I think the presentation seems pretty spectacular. The way they mix directed kind of like live video stuff with the gameplay. It's like very kind of like unique time to be doing that kind of thing where it no longer looks like, Sewer Shark on Sega CD, full motion video, interstitials where it's a jarring break from the gameplay and then a jump back to the gameplay where now it's pretty seamless. A lot of the like nearly seamless. A lot of the examples I saw, I think it's pretty neat to see that occurring. So I would say in terms of art direction, seems very well deserved and appropriate to me. But in terms of both narrative and gameplay direction, which is supposed to be my take from reading the description of the category, is that was really supposed to be kind of like innovative or new and impressive sort of like gameplay features. And to me, from everything I saw in Alan Wake's actual gameplay, seemed not particularly deep or particularly innovative. And again, I'm really not even trying to trash the game because not every game needs those things, but it seems kind of surprising to me that they gave it direction because that feels almost like a misinterpretation of the category, like I first said. Because if the category was best cinematic direction or something, I think maybe that would make sense. But to me, the gameplay, it feels surprising to me, the gameplay in Alan Wake was hailed as being particularly innovative. J Mel's, you actually played it, didn't you? How off base do you think I am?
No, you're really accurate in everything you said. To be honest, I haven't even finished the game because I was kind of at a part where I'm really stuck, so I need to take a break. But you're very spot on with everything that you were mentioning.
So one of the things that made me think of that, Astrimedes, because you make an excellent point. I kind of remembered some of the conjecture with like Oscars and stuff like that is like whoever wins the best director, that's kind of like the silver medal prize for the best picture thing. I'm wondering if with how Jeff Keighley is with wanting to make this a love letter to Hollywood or marrying Hollywood with video games, if that's kind of how he sells it to the critics and everything like that, that actually make the votes towards the game. And so like Alan Wake 2 would be like the silver medal winner to compared to, freaking Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, I mean, under that interpretation, it 100% makes perfect sense. Yeah, because it did feel like to me that was the other like big contender for Game of the Year.
So one of the things kind of on that Hollywood slant during the presentation itself, we had actors like Anthony Mackie going in there with like he had a 5-minute intro and he's literally joking around and like talking to like singly to little hecklers shouting at him during the whole thing, where the time that he's trying to present his award, it's like 5 to 7 minutes. And then you got the whole Hideo Kojima with Jordan Peele. That was like a 6 to 8 minute segment. And then you got Matthew McConaughey and his all right for like 3 to 4 minutes and everything like that. And then the other side of that is you got 13 individuals actually accepting awards on stage. 13. There's 35 categories, but 13 actual like people accepting awards on stage and them being limited to a hard 30 seconds. And where if they eclipse that 30-second mark, you get the band playing them off. If they hit 20 seconds, there's a little sign that faces them that says, please wrap it up. And it's a thing where it was quite telling. I saw somebody on YouTube talk about how you got Eiji Aonuma, one of the producer for Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, where he's being told, wrap it up. You've got the director and producer for Baldur's Gate 3, the game of the year award, giving his speech, being told, please wrap it up. And it's like, I feel like it's a disrespect to the developers accepting awards, especially when there's about a third of the individuals actually accepting awards for, again, 13 out of 35. And then it's that whole love letter that Jeff Keighley has towards Hollywood, where he's trying to like it's almost like he's trying to justify the legitimacy of video games as an equal to Hollywood, when we've discussed this before in our podcast here, that it doesn't equal it. It is more than that. It's above it. It's more, it sells more, there's more interactivity, it's its own brand of art. Kind of getting into that, and Storm, I'm gonna kind of call on you for this. I also want to get your thought on whether or not you think that whole 30 seconds per thing is fair, as well as this whole Hollywood mentality to the Game Awards themselves, because I know there's a bit of an art slant with that too. Storm, what are your thoughts?
It is absolutely ridiculous that the developers and the makers of these games, the whole reason for the award show, were given 30 seconds, especially when there's only 13 out of 35. Give me a freaking break. What they're trying to do is make video gaming mainstream. I'm going to pull out the nerd word, but video gaming, as huge as it is still a nerd community. Okay, so adding Hollywood, that was my air quoting around nerd. So bringing in the big Hollywood names to try to garner attention. Now I know Mackie was in the Twisted Metal TV show, the whatever, so it makes sense having him as a presenter, but he should have had 5 minutes, half of his time, and you get a couple more categories up there, because believe it or not, the people that are watching and listening to this and are watching those awards, their heroes are in the crowd. You are giving them flashy hoorah, and people who are watching these shows want to hear what their developers have in next. Like maybe they'll throw a tidbit of get you excited for what they're working on next or something. That's what you're looking for. You're not looking for Matthew McConaughey to do all right. I mean, he's great at it, but
yeah,
and I couldn't keep going. But yeah, that's just annoying. It's disrespectful for all of them who have put time, and a lot of time and hard work goes into making these games what they are. The engineering and coding and everything that goes on behind it, I have huge respect for, so it's disrespectful.
The show, I'm sorry, the show is meant for video game and video game development and the writers. The show is not based on the actors themselves. It shouldn't be.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if it's based on actors, the actors should be one of many of the aspects, and actors that actually acted within the games themselves. They voiced them, like Ben Starr and the gentleman that won Baldur's Gate 3. I can't remember what his Neil Newbon, I think his name is. I cheated.
Yes.
Or even Yuri Lowenthal as Peter Parker.
And have Kane Hodder come out there, who's done like the motion capturing for Friday the 13th and Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
People would love to see him. I would love to see him. And so there you go.
Like, you got the whole Hollywood aspect, and then you've got the commercial aspect where they world premiere. I do like those, although they tend to hit more like that like whole shooter aspect and that like the whole Western type of game aspect. But like I feel like the Game Awards should be a little bit more about how the donuts are made versus trying to be something that it's not.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue like what I guess I would ask myself what I'm thinking as we have this discussion is, like, who is the show actually for? I'm wondering, is it actually for, publishers to some extent? Like, is it, like, because to me, while game players, gamers, are going to watch anything like that, like I would almost think it's really like a more of a weird kind of like industry level event that is like at a level beyond or outside of the actual developers. Like the awards are for these things, but like thinking about the example of like the Oscars, say, it's like, how I don't know, I guess like thinking about how much the actual kind of artists are really rewarded for that. I guess, directors always get to say something, actors of course are obvious choice. I suppose it is a lot more direct kind of in what the show is about for that. And I feel like overall the marrying it to Hollywood thing is probably like a bit unnecessary at this point. Like it feels a little bit like a thing that doesn't know exactly what it is or who it is for, because like I said, I'm kind of grasping to think of what, and I'm sure, if you break it down, like there is a very kind of like monetary line. Like I wonder what high level decisions get made as a result of these awards. If we could break down, where real decisions are made based on those awards, maybe, follow the money, whatever, maybe that's who it's really for. So to me, I almost feel like this is like at the level of, like publishers and sort of like groups like that.
Yeah, because
Well,
it's I'm sorry, Simbu, go ahead.
I mean, I guess I'm gonna have the hot take on this one. But when it comes to accepting accepting the awards and stuff like that, a lot of these developers and studio heads and project leads and things like that have done countless interviews with all the major gaming outlets and things like that. And now the thing is though is if they allow them to go long and talk about the gaming aspects of the thing, stuff that they've gone over in interviews and that are published online. And my question would be is how many gamers have gone and watched any of these dev interviews with like IGN or Gamer Rant or anything like that? Because to be honest with you, I don't really watch many of the interviews. So getting, like how the sausage is made on a award show, which is already very flashy and very, Hollywood and red carpet and all that. Now you're talking, you're gonna bring out like all the, devs. Granted, I do think 30 seconds is a bit disrespectful, in the scheme of time allotments. But realistically, if you give some of these devs 5 minutes up there when they accept the awards for their games, what are they really going to say that they haven't already said in other interviews?
Well, look at it this way. Think about Christopher Judge when he accepted the best performance last year, when his speech was 8 minutes. I feel like this year was a very hard reaction to that particular event, and it was something where they went a little too hard on that end, and maybe they need to do something where like you got the 30 seconds and then you got another 30 seconds to where that please wrap it up sign pops up, and then after that minute period, that's when the music starts to play. And and you make a good point about the donuts being made thing sort of thing, where when they're accepting the award, let them take the time to thank everybody that helped support them, thank their team, thank the people who couldn't make it, because that was an important thing. Where Baldur's Gate 3, when they were accepting the award for Game of the Year, they were trying to say thanks to all the team who literally died during the event that shall not be named for fear of demonetization on this cast here a couple years ago, where okay, we want to honor them by mentioning them, but the music's already rearing up and going and everything. It's like, come on, guys, let's find a happy medium, and maybe even give a little bit more time for other awards like the esports, because we need to know who is the best esports coach. Right, Astrimedes? You need to know who the best esports
That's important.
That is
I don't actually necessarily disagree with your hot take there, Simbu. Like, that's kind of why I was wondering out loud, like who is this award show like
yeah.
really for to some extent? Because by putting all the Hollywood stuff in there, it's like the gamers don't need that. They'll show up just to see the news about games and
Exactly.
people accepting the awards. But I
Exactly.
actually agree, most gamers, they don't care about how the sausage is made. They don't necessarily want to hear that. What they want to hear is news about new games and rah 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 for stuff they like and the game they like, and root for who they want to win. And I mean, like, and there are other outlets like for in-depth discussions about technical aspects of game development. There's like game developers conferences. There's many of those, 2-hour long talks you can find for free, many of them, if you really do care about how the narrative structure works in Baldur's Gate to a very deep level. That information sort of is out there. This is an award show. We don't necessarily need to get into the details there. And I mean, to some extent, devs might even be uncomfortable in that sort of environment.
Half the time there's
Yep.
documentaries that are filmed about the making of for a lot of these games anyway. Books are written, everything like that. So if you're interested, unless the big caveat is Nintendo and Nintendo games, that's the big caveat. There usually isn't anything about how those are made. But like, and the opposite end is most Western studios. There's a lot of transparency in documentaries and everything like that are made.
Though even for Nintendo, that's becoming a little less true. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I just want to, add that when I first said anything, it is that I don't think that they should get up there and be able to have endless time and tell the story of how anything is made. I don't know how I made that come across.
No, that I think that was me. My apologies.
That was just a random offshoot, I think.
Okay, because while the developers there, it's silly to have a lot of them have 30 seconds of time. That's just amazing. And to add Hollywood, it feels cheesy to an industry that is already bigger than Hollywood. It's kind of like you're going to go that. A lot of gamers don't need the flashy. Flashy is in their video games. You throw new video. This is what we're working on. Here's a, coming for PlayStation, like Xbox. Before somebody gets an award, throw a little video up or something like
and they
kind
do
of flashy.
that
It already exists. See, so adding more Hollywood to drag it along for it was 3.5 hours for what? Like, by that time you're losing attention of a lot of people. So
my selfish part of the Hollywood thing I don't want them to take away is the orchestrated pre thing before the best game award production, because like when they do the little 30 seconds per game thing, you got the Baldur's Gate theme, you got Spider-Man 2, Alan Wake 2, Alan Wake 2, and the Mario theme and the Zelda theme and everything like that. Like I think that's amazing, especially that dancing flute guy where he's really into it. Like just that kind of stuff is really neat. But like,
Hollywood to me is bringing in the actors who have catchphrases to like add flashy where you don't really need to add flashy. Have last year's winner give the presentation, whatever, to extend those people time and then cut developers is just a silly way to go. It seems that is all. But like, all the added little things to make the show a show. You have to make it entertaining, otherwise people aren't going to watch. Because just to read off awards, man, we've all been through that in school, you know.
It's
So,
like
Yeah.
they're
sorry,
trying to
Jamie
get.
House.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna say that it's like they're trying. To me, seems like they're being desperate for views and thinking that maybe if they add a couple of Hollywood actors, that they're going to get more views. Which, to me, I don't think it's necessary. Like Astrimedes says, you have to know your audience to
And,
who.
Mhm.
and to piggyback on what Jamie Owls is saying, this 2023 show was the most viewed show since its original inception and release back in 2014, and even before, when it was the Spike Awards or whatever, when it was on Spike TV. We got something where it was 3.5 million people that were watching it at its peak, and on average 3.2 million were watching it, whereas last year those numbers were 2.2 and 2 million respectively. So you got a 58% increase overall. It has its audience. People are watching this. It's being seen, and I'm gonna have to Google how many people were watching the Oscars this year, but I feel like that was beating that. But I'm wrong. Sorry. Oscars were 16.6 million for 2022 and 10.4 million for 2021. So, but again, it's not something where like gamers are going to always just watch this. Astrimedes' point is very, very salient here, where it's like, who is this for? It's for it should focus on celebrating the games that were released, awarding those games for all of its efforts in the categories. It should be about thanking and allowing those developers who win the awards to celebrate their win within an appropriate amount of time, and the game premieres, the world premieres. And once you hit all of that, maybe you can even help shrink down the bloated 3.5 hour show down to something more reasonable, like 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean, I think a lot of the Hollywood identity is just a partly a reaction to get it away from that like Spike gamer identity that it originally had. So maybe it's like we're like laundering the theming and style of the show. Maybe we just need to go through this Hollywood phase, and then we can drop some of that Hollywood pretension and sort of make it a more normal show now that we've completely off ramped away from Spike TV, Mountain Dew gamer.
Simbu, you were going to say?
The only reason why I'm, I think that a big part of the reason why they bring on some of these big names is because like that Matthew McConaughey has a big role in an upcoming game. Chris Judge, obviously massive, role in the God of War series. But you bring in these like these performing artists, because they are comfortable in front of the cameras. My question becomes, how many of these devs, like from studios, even if they've done 100 interviews, like the guys from Larian, who have probably done hundreds of interviews, how comfortable realistically are they? Like this is different, us being on a podcast. Like if I'm the head of Larian Studios giving an interview on a podcast format from a Skype call or a Zoom call versus standing in front of hundreds of people and then having to put on a show, somebody like me who comes from performance background. It's a whole lot different when I'm filming promos for the upcoming season versus actually stepping out in front of the crowd and performing. So some people they can have a lot to say right now, but you put them on a stage in front of a crowd and they got to perform. And that's, the Bob's your uncle right there. They freeze. So it could have been, the 30-second thing. Again, big reaction to Chris Judge last year, possibly trying to, keep the devs from the studios from floundering while they were giving their acceptance speeches. But I do agree, Storm, you did hit the nail on the head. 30 seconds is a disgrace, especially for Larian, for the people that they lost due to the last couple years. They should have, the Jeff Keighley should have known, hey, if they win, they're gonna want to talk about them. We should give them a few extra moments, to and if they want to put a little musical score, like a little musical score under their, hey, these people, we lost these people, that's fine, but it shouldn't be the wrap up music.
And especially like the category, the big category, the last one, like give them more than 30 seconds. Come on now.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Oscars gives the last category, at least a minute. And I totally agree, Simbu. Some of those developers don't want to talk, so they should have the choice. Each one that goes up there, if they are allowed a minute, they're allowed a minute. If they have a lot to say, they have a lot to say. If they don't, they say their piece and their choice to walk off. If they're done, they're done, instead of rushing them because,
agree.
And
and
it's
maybe there's language barriers for some developers.
and that was a
So,
big
like,
that was a
Yeah.
big thing where there were Japanese individuals accepting awards where they're giving their speech, and the person who's translating it is starting to get cut off by the music. I mean,
Oh
come
yeah,
on
that
now.
happened.
that's
Yeah.
ignorant.
That's obnoxious. Yeah.
That's so ignorant. Yeah.
So like I was getting I was getting a little bit pissed at that. Like, just let the guy give the translation over to present the thing. And it's like,
Right.
and it's interesting because there were previous winners from previous, like last year's categories, that did present some awards. So it was nice where you had like developers and workers in the industry do that. So you can mix it up. Like that's totally cool. But if and there was what was his name? Jeremy Liu, I think he was the Shang Li and the Seven Rings. He was also another Hollywood actor that presented it. To Simbu's point, that I guess that makes sense because he's another voice in another video game coming up. So I mean, there's some connection, but it's like you don't always have to have the big names and everything like that. So just
My
kind
gripe
of
is just their time. Their time. I'm sorry.
no
to
no
Talk on top of you, but my biggest complaint would be the time that those stars were given versus the people that you're there to celebrate. They should have at least been given a minute to say what they want to say and to get it out without being rushed. And maybe the presenters don't get 8 minutes to present an award. That's kind of a little. I don't think even the Oscars go that long. I'm trying to think of something that they might be longer as a in memoriam video when they played those of the actors who died or something, or that's when it becomes long, but not a whole skit before.
exactly. And one of the nice things though is like, yeah, it gets to be a bit Hollywood, but like the premieres themselves are pretty cool because you get a good idea on stuff that comes out. For me, I kind of want to touch base on like what has been announced that might have caught everybody's eye. It was tougher for me because Nintendo is almost to totally non-existent on these and has been since Sephiroth was announced in, I think, 2020 or 2019 or 2020 as a DLC for Smash Brothers. Before I lost my darn mind on that, I can't think of the last time that a big Nintendo thing was announced. But even with that said, so like no Nintendo stuff. I think for me, some of the cool announcements I saw was like the newest trailer for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It was really great to see the whole golden saucer date mechanic from the OG Final Fantasy VII kind of being up, like back up and running, and also being like, super HD where you got these real lifelike looking Final Fantasy characters. So my inner Final Fantasy weeb was squealing in delight. Final Fantasy 16 DLC was cool, I guess. A new Trials of Mana or a new Mana series game being announced was really cool. Like that hadn't seen
Visions of Mana, right? That's what they're calling that one.
Yeah, where the last mainline Mana game, new one, was Dawn of Mana back in 2006. So like I was pretty happy to see stuff like that. So I'll open it up to you guys just to kind of see what you guys were most excited to see get announced or released. And if it's nothing, feel free to say that. Simbu, let me start with you because you had some really good things that you mentioned offline in our chat that caught your eye.
Well, I've probably mentioned an extra one that's probably escaping me at the moment. But I mean, obviously the God of War DLC I was so happy. Of course, it's out today as of the recording of this podcast. And again, it was one of those things where it was like, is Santa Monica going to fall victim to it? They already said there's going to be no, they blah, 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 woo, woo. Are they going to backpedal? And then the big free DLC hits at the end of the little trailer. And it's like, okay, Santa Monica is they're sticking to their guns. They're not going to fall victim to the EA trap, which is nice to see. And then obviously the other big one was the Jurassic Park survival game. I can't wait. It's been a long time since we've had a good Jurassic Park game, and I will tell you, I guarantee somebody in the comments will probably bring up, well, we had the Jurassic World Evolutions. Those were sim and tycoon. Those were sim tycoon games. I'm talking an adventure game like the original games for Nintendo or Sega, or even the Telltale Jurassic Park game that came out for the 360. But this is going to be interesting. A first-person survival Jurassic Park game. This is on my. I can't wait, and I know I'm gonna probably have to wait a few years for it.
Yeah, it really hit and struck a chord for a lot of us old people who saw the first Jurassic Park movie either in theaters or when it first came out, because there were a bunch of great nods to that original movie. I mean, almost beat for beat, and it looks beautiful. The game looks phenomenal, and if some way it can marry the whole adventure aspect, and even has a little bit of like horror thrown in there to really get like the heart pumping, like it sounds like that would be so exciting.
Chef's kiss.
Yes. It doesn't have to be horror, and this is where the I'm gonna get pedantic, just thriller.
No, that's a good distinction. You get that thriller survival aspect. Like, you don't
Because
have
the
to see the
horror is
gore or
like,
anything, but like if you have that thriller sort of sense of like, if you have that sort of sense of dread, you've done your game, you've done your horror, thriller, what have you, game right. So I absolutely agree with you there. Jamie Owls, I'm sorry, you were gonna say?
Oh no, I was just mentioning about the Jurassic Park game that is Chef's Kiss, like a perfect survival game. So yeah.
Oh, any other games that caught your eye, Jamie Owls?
There was a couple. What Simbu mentioned was the Jurassic Park, even though I'm not big into dinosaurs, but that game really caught my eye, and of course I enjoyed the first movie back when I saw it as a kid. There's a couple of games that caught my eye when seeing the reviews. Banishers Ghost of New Eden, which comes out in February, and another game called, it looks like it was a remake. It's the Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons that caught my eye. So those are the two that caught my attention, then got me interested in wanting to play.
Excellent. Nice. Yeah. They're definitely really interesting looking games. Storm, how about you? Would any of the games catch your eye at all that were announced?
Well, besides the God of War DLC, which is very, very exciting. I'm glad that is waiting for me once I get through Ragnarok. Jurassic Park is up there, and Blade.
Oh, Blade, that's right. Too bad you can't. You're too bad you're not going to be able to play it.
Well, hold on, because they have been moot on that point. They have not said word one about any of it.
Why do you say she won't be able to play it?
Because it's confirmed for Xbox Series X and S only.
Ah, okay.
Really?
Wait, is
Well,
that actually confirmed?
It
Then
is
that must have
confirmed.
confirmed today.
No, it is a confirmed thing. It is
yeah,
not going to be
I'm
coming
seeing that.
to PlayStation systems at all.
Well, that is a reason to get Steam if it's available there
Although I wonder if it'll be
at some point.
PC.
No, because I'm Googling.
Well, I was gonna say, because the last thing I heard
That's good
was
radio.
Arcane Leon was tight-lipped about exclusivity on that game.
Yeah, as of
Y-
10 hours ago, it looks like people are talking that it is not coming to PS5, which is just
Yeah,
grumble.
because with them being owned by Microsoft and well, technically they're owned by ZeniMax / Bethesda and then owned by Microsoft. But we'll
Alright.
see.
Well,
There is a
That's
can of
fair.
worms that I could open right now with good old Philly Spencer, if that's the case.
That means we're buying you an Xbox Series S. Simbu.
Absolutely not. I mean, if you guys want to
Yeah.
pay for it, sure. But Phil, if you're listening and this is what's going to happen, you have just slapped everybody in the face and you look like the donkey from Shrek at this point.
But-
I'm going to say that.
But if you buy an Xbox system, you can get Game Pass and get it day one for free.
Yeah, but again, he has come out and Phil has said that he wants to end the exclusivity and all that, blah, 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 blah. And all right, Phil.
Astrimedes, how about you? Are there any games announced that caught your eye?
What probably caught my eye the most was the tiny, 90-second whatever trailer that Sega put out with multiple
Oh,
interesting looking
yes.
games in it to me. On the forefront, probably Golden Axe. I feel like there have maybe been attempts in the past, or maybe just games like it, to move Golden Axe into a 3D environment, but I am hopeful that, by now, with the time and experience we've had and the kind of like resurgence again of 2D games and developers hopefully being a little wiser about how to use 3D than they were in some of the initial rushes to, convert things from 2D to 3D. I think they could potentially do a really good job. Same thing goes basically for Streets of Rage, which looks like it's getting a similar treatment on like a 3D plane of some kind versus a purely 2D environment. And I'm excited at the potential of that.
Yeah, I remember clearly the Shinobi, the very what 2 or 3 seconds was 2D planed, so that one
Yeah,
looked-
Shinobi. Yeah, I was gonna say Shinobi. Actually, I wouldn't have been necessarily super excited about Shinobi, but actually just the fact that it looks like they're giving it a spiffy 2D treatment rather than trying to move that one into 3D, which feels like probably the right move for that game. That's really all about kind of split second, kind of one hit kills and just move quickly sort of thing. That is very well suited to 2D. Whereas both of the other games I mentioned, Golden Axe and Streets of Rage, are actually systems where, if done well, that could benefit from 3 dimensions with kind of more, grapply move sets or whatever the case is. You potentially take advantage of the 3 dimensions.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny you mentioned that. I'm like, how the heck did I forget that? Because that was like near top of my list beforehand. Just with me and my whole Nintendo fanboy reviews of Sega Genesis video game
Right.
series that got me into it. I'm like, seeing that, Jamie Owls will tell you that like I was stupid excited when I saw that. I thought it was going to be a Dreamcast mini reveal because that had been hinted at for like the longest time.
Mhm.
Kind of going vague, a little bit more of a vaguer type topic, and especially as we get ready to close out, just want to kind of gauge everybody's opinions, just what games that we're really just looking forward to that we know that are coming out next year. Again, we know or have a good understanding that's coming out in 2024. Like, well, what are we all looking forward to the most? Storm, I'm going to start off with you. Like, for games that that's coming next year, again, doesn't have to be announced on the Game Awards. Like, what are you looking forward to? What's got your eye?
The Princess Peach Showdown, and Donkey Kong versus Mario. Those two I'm looking forward to the most right now.
Nice, good choices.
Yeah.
That look
and getting through my video games that I bought.
Mhm.
So there you go. Just getting through that catalog a little bit, but yeah, right now that is what is on my radar, and the Jurassic Park I have to add. So there you go.
Simbo, how about you? What are you looking forward to coming out next year?
Well, was Jurassic Park announced for next year? Was it slated for next year, or was that just a, first look kind of thing? But they're still far off in production
Good question.
I don't
because most of that trailer looked cinematic versus gameplay.
I'll Google.
Yeah, that's a good question.
But while we're discussing, because if that is slated for next year, then obviously I am definitely on board with excited for that. Obviously, Star Wars Outlaws is been slated for next year sometime. We don't have a release date. That could always be pushed. And if it does get pushed, I hope it's pushed because then it gives more time for polishing. Storm, I'm shocked that I'm going to say this before you. And oh my God, you killed Kenny.
Oh,
Because that is slated for next year. We don't have an official release date yet, but that is slated for next year, and I think that's a Q2 release, I believe, is what they're eyeballing. But of course, that could change. Not really for the most part, not a lot that has been confirmed. And the only thing that really has a release date as of this recording is Helldivers 2. I mean, it looks fantastic from the trailer, from the VGAs. Again, it's one of those games I'm hemming and hawing over, but I probably will end up picking it up because it's a game my old gaming crew is interested in playing, so I might pick that up because big reason I got Dead Island 2 was to go play with them again after many, many moons of not, talking to them. But other than that, yeah, I really don't have much in the way of excitement for stuff that, as far as hard release dates.
Yeah, I am also kind of interested in Helldivers too. I played a fair bit of the first one, and I'm curious to see, after seeing some of the trailers, whatever, some of the random videos I've seen of what they're showing us about what they're doing with the second one. I'm curious to see what they do with it, because the first one felt like it had a lot of options, and theoretically it really could benefit from a more kind of fully realized 3D plane and more direct sort of boots on the ground control of your character, but that also potentially opens up a lot of space for it to not feel as good, like my reaction to Risk of Rain 2, where they made it more 3D and everything, and I sort of didn't like it. Since I'm blabbering now, I'll mention the others. Sorry, go ahead, Simbu. Do you have something to say about that?
About Helldivers 2. Honestly, I think that this is just going to be more positive for it, for the type of game that it is, being, the first one was like an XCOM style, so usually when it comes into those high firefight, high intensity, high action games, if you bring that camera in, and this one's going to be the, Doom Cannon, camera. I mean, I feel that it's really going to benefit and really, intensify the entire game.
Yeah, it has a ton of potential, but you open up a whole lot more kind of like work, obviously, when you're doing that. Now it's like there's all like the feel of the individual guns, something that's a lot kind of simpler decisions to make when you're zoomed, this far out, basically an overhead view, like the original game one was. You don't have to worry too much about how each gun feels, versus it's a very big thing when you can see first person particularly, but even like an over the shoulder third person, there's all sorts of little additional concerns. Basically, it's like there's more places to shoot yourself in the foot the more granular your presentation is. Essentially, there's more little things that could not feel quite right and whatever. But I agree with you, the game is very much could benefit from like that sort of increased resolution and control. It's just a matter of how well they'll execute.
And not to mention the haptics of the PS5 controller.
Yeah.
So that's gonna play a huge part in the design for that, as you said, the gun feels.
Yeah. Yep. Other than that, ones I'm looking forward to are Hades 2, I believe is supposed to be 2024. Which it's probably enough said about Hades. First Hades was pretty great. Curious to see what they do with the second one. And then Streets of Rogue 2, sort of a deep cut here. First game, Streets of Rogue, came out many years ago at this point, probably, I don't know, I'd probably guess maybe 8 years ago or something, maybe a little more than that. So Streets of Rogue, sort of like a top-down 2D. It's almost like a combination of like a GTA sort of thing, with almost a more like Roblox like sort of, you're a guy who's running around. It's a weird pull to say Roblox. I just say that because it's a 2D presentation. It's a kind of, you're always a character presentation. But Streets of Rogue 2 looks like it has a potential to be a kind of deceptively deep, weird sort of GTA type simulation game that has like a city with a lot of surprisingly deep kind of moving parts that you're meant to sort of carry out missions throughout, like an ongoing like mission structure. It looks like Streets of Rogue 2 is maybe going to be a bit more open world, a bit more focused on kind of vehicles you can drive around and stuff like that. So curious about that one.
Nice. No, that sounds really cool. I will have to check that out too because I hadn't heard of that at all. Finally, Jamie Owls, how about you? What games are you looking forward to in 2024?
Number one for me is the Tomb Raider remastered of the first three original games that comes out in February 14th, which ironically is Lara Croft's birthday. The second one I'm looking forward to, I believe it was supposed to release this year. It's a horror survival game called Alone in the Dark. It
Oh
was
yeah, that's
a
right.
remake or reimagining of the 1992 version. That comes out in March from what I'm looking at. And of course, the Princess Peach game for the Switch. That one I'm looking forward to. And there's another one. Of course, the other two that I mentioned that were announced during the Game Awards. And the other game, I don't think it's gonna be released next year, or they just mentioned it in the Game Awards. That new DQ game. They were the makers for the Death Stranding. I'm kind of curious of what that's gonna
Oh,
be.
is that OD?
OD,
The
yeah,
Hideo Kojima Bojazz?
yeah. What did I say? DQ. I'm sorry.
Oh
Yeah.
man,
Someone wants
Jamie
Dairy
Owls
Queen.
wants the Dairy Queen game.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm always open to trying something new. So I watched Inferno Fox play those. But yeah, so those are the games I'm looking forward to. Tomb Raider's number one, honestly.
Excellent. Nice. And finally, as for me, you can catch what games that I'm looking forward to on my future video games I'm looking forward to playing coming out in 2024. Probably in a couple weeks. I'm going to be releasing that in a little bit, but I want to go ahead and wrap things up here and just say a big thank you to everybody on the team here, the cast and the crew. We always have a lot of fun having our discussion, and today was no exception. Talking about the aftermath and afterbirth that is the 2023 Game Awards. And of course, I'd like to thank first my partner and partner in crime, Jamie Owls. Jamie Owls, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Stormrosesky of YouTube and Twitch channels of Stormrosesky. Storm, have you thought about live streaming any of your gameplay on PS5? Because you can do it like directly to Twitch or YouTube. That's what I was playing with my YouTube channel. It's really easy.
I have played with it on my for Twitch. I have streamed a couple of times, not a whole lot. I need to do a lot more because it is super simple compared to having to stream with the Switch and connecting the Switch to the computer and then using OBS and whatnot, and at least I don't have to use OBS through that. And OBS is just a computer hog, and it slows everything down. Anyway, but yes, I have used it. I need to play around with the YouTube function because I think it would, if you can directly stream to YouTube from it, I'll check into that too.
Nice. Yeah, that's what I was doing the other day on my own like personal channel, just to try and get it down before I actually start to put it on Inferno Fox Gaming on YouTube. One of the things that I need to do is make sure to plug in the headphones and microphone to the controller. Otherwise, what I noticed is doing Fork Knife Festival, I hear the
Yep.
click,
Yeah.
constant clicking of all the
Yes.
the
Yes.
buttons and everything, and it's like, okay, that's not going to sound good for people, the viewer, the one viewer who will watch my live stream. So I have to think of
Hey.
the viewer.
If that's the case, then it'll be just like, they'll be just like they're playing the game with you, because that's what we hear too.
I
Yep.
want the ASMR of all those button presses. I can't fall asleep unless someone is tapping soothingly on a controller.
Well, then you will
I do
hear.
want to say one thing real quick. If you check out Storm Rose while she's live streaming, make sure BOT is nowhere in your name. You will get insta banned.
Yep. Yep. Yes, you will.
Exactly. Next up, of course, I just again thanking Astrimedes, aka Hot Slice, developer and co-owner of Second Place Games. Astrimedes, thank you again for joining us.
Thanks for having me. And that name people gave me is Top Slice, not Hot Slice.
I like mine better.
Flop ice.
Exactly. And last but not least, we have our level 5 grandpa, primary actor or main actor at Basement of the Dead, located in Aurora, Illinois. Simbu Darkfang, aka the best player at Fork Knife. Don't challenge me on this. Simbu, thank you so much for joining us.
I'm gonna challenge you on that. That is not me. But happy 4th of July, everybody.
And thank you so much for joining our wonderful audience, and have a great day.